rapid dehydration, diarrhea, restlessness, or irritability. These symptoms can begin as soon as a few or as long as 5 days after a person has been infected. If symptoms occur, seek medical attention immediately. Prevention is key. Drink only boiled or treated water. Do not drink out of a bottle with a broken seal. Wash fruits and vegetables thoroughly with clean water. Wash your hands regularly with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with infected individuals. Together, we can make our society cholera-free. This message is brought to you by Echo 100.7 FM, Owerri.
Revolutionize your health. It is time to thrive. On Health Revolution, we bring valuable insights, inspiration, and practical tools to help transform your health, reduce chronic diseases, and improve your well-being. Learn from leading health experts, researchers, and practitioners as they share cutting-edge information and advice that will help you make informed decisions. Join Mary, the Slim Diva, every weekday from Mondays to Thursdays at 11 a.m. on Echo FM 100.7 Owerri. Health Revolution, your daily tonic for healthy living.
Okay, 8 minutes gone past 11. This lovely Wednesday morning. How are you today? And yes, you can feel it in my voice already. I'm doing great, absolutely great. And it's good to be here once again for another interesting edition of Health Revolution. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, J-Boy. J-Boy is on the deck this morning. No dull moments with him. If you know, you know. I don't want to talk much. Let me not hype him too much so that this, you see these dreads, it will now stand. Because I don't even know the positioning of this dread. Is it Best Beauty? Look at J-Boy again. How is this dread growing? Is it growing up, straight up, or sideways? Or I don't understand.
I think his
style.
dread affects his mood. If it's low, his mood is low.
If his mood is low, the dread will drop.
Yes.
Then if he's happy and a little bit high, the dread will go up. Oh, now I understand what is going on, because I really do not understand what you have on your head. But it's looking good. Okay, my name as always is Mary Omeni Wode. You can call me the Slim Diva. You're most adorable.
And my name is Best Beauty.
Yes, for today's edition, we will not be taking any phone calls. You know why? We spoke to a pediatrician, and she's someone that would always feature right here on Health Revolution, especially on issues that affect children. She is a neonatal care specialist and a renowned pediatrician. And today she will be educating us on accidental poisoning. Ever heard of that?
I haven't, actually.
Okay. Accidental poisoning, not in adults now. We are going to do another edition for adults maybe next week. But today the focus is going to be on children. Accidental poisoning in children. And what you can do, the steps to take, the first aid measures to put in place to make sure that that child doesn't just pass away or die. For instance, growing up, I remember an incident. I remember it like vividly in my head. I was on my way to school that morning with my aunt who was staying with us way back then. I was still a very, very small child. And then all of a sudden I saw a woman screaming for help along the road that's in front of her shop, and my aunt left me and rushed over to where she was. I had to go there as well to see what was going on, and I saw a baby in her arms, like let me say 1 year or 2 years old. I actually don't know the exact age, and the child had foam, this foamy substance already coming out from the mouth. The woman was screaming, what happened to this child? And then she said the child drank jik. What did this? Sorry, not jik, bleach. That the child took bleach and everybody started screaming. Some were saying bring palm oil, some were saying bring milk. Confusion everywhere. At that point we didn't know what to do, but you could see the child's eyeballs were already going down. It was so visible, and I was so scared. That's why up till this moment, that particular scenario has not left my mindset. I don't know if you've experienced something like that, or you've seen something like that
There's
before.
always this saying that children always try to unalive themselves. I don't know why they do that. my mom will always remind us of how my elder brother was always speaking things and eating, to the extent that he, petrol, the ones they keep in jerry can.
Fuel.
Before they'd always keep it in jerry cans in our house.
Yes.
You'd always have supply in your house, because it was somehow then, not now that you can easily go to a filling station and fill your jerry can. So my brother would, as young as he was, he would drink it. She said they gave him palm oil then. But they don't advise you to do that. But before she finally rushed, people were like, give him this. You know how people be pressuring to give this, give that. So
at that point you'll be confused, because you hear suggestions from left, right, center. So we say, some even tell you give him what they call this black, oh my God, udaku abi udaki. So say pour it inside his mouth. Everything.
My little brother,
I remember a child again who picked up an iron hanger. He was playing, hitting it on the door, making noise, and the mom kept on screaming, stop that, stop. For oh boy, not here. The next thing, anger pricked his eye. Yes. And then he got stuck there. He started shouting, started screaming. So the woman who was at that time panicking didn't calm down to check, where the thing had got stuck. She just carried the child with the anger outside and was shouting, screaming. So it took the intervention of people around. They just came and they were able to now remove it. And thank God it did not puncture the eyeball of that child. Maybe at this point in time, that boy would have been a blind boy. But so these things happen. And most times it is unpredictable. So let's go listen. Let's take a listen to a clip from Dr. Bemishola Boyedeshi. Actually took her time to explain in depth what this accidental poisoning can actually be and the measures we'll put in place. But we'll bounce back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Today I'm going to be talking about accidental poisonings. Accidental poisoning. I mean, this is one of those preventable causes of death in children. And as a pediatrician, have witnessed my fair share of such cases. And I think it's one of the most painful things that can happen to a child dying. And it's even more painful when these children died, not because of the poisoning itself, but because of the wrong first aid method. I still remember clearly one of the HCP fans sending me a message about a child who accidentally drank kerosene. And then, of course, in Nigeria, especially, we believe palm oil is the solution to everything. Unfortunately, it's not always the case. In fact, when it comes to poisoning in children, palm oil is not a solution at all. So this child was given palm oil to drink, and so that the child will vomit. At the end of the day, this child ended up becoming more breathless. And we pediatricians know what is happening, because what that means that the child has now inhaled both the kerosene that was being vomited and the palm oil into the lungs. And the child developed what we call lipoid pneumonia. The child ended up in the ICU. And unfortunately, we lost a child. I remember writing an article then that went viral on most of the Nigerian social media and newspaper platform about the palm oil antidotes. Please do not give children palm oil when they drank kerosene or all the things like that. You're actually going to do more harm than good. And so that's why today I'm going to be talking to us about accidental poisoning. I want you to listen well as parents, because it's our responsibility to make sure that our children do not develop this kind of issues. And sometimes, I know we try our best, something will happen. We must know what first aid that we can give in such cases. Now, let's start by defining what is poisoning. Number one, you need to realize that anything can be a poison. even some of the things that are not normally poison, but if they are taken in certain quantity, for example, our medications that we take, if they are taken in certain quantity, it can become poisonous. For example, we take iron supplements, but do you know that if children take much of those iron supplement, blood tonic, as we commonly call them, it can become poison to them. Another example is even the paracetamol syrup that most of us think, oh, it's just something we all use. We don't need prescription for that. But do you know that there's amounts of paracetamol syrup that children can drink and it can become poison. So in fact, virtually all the agents that we have in our houses every day are potential poisons. All the soap, liquid soap, all the things that we have, all the household cleaners, all of them, we just leave them lying around. They are potential poisons. And I want us as parents to begin to have the look that whenever you're going around, be conscious of the fact that any of those things that is lying around you is a potential source of poison to a child, and we need to be conscious of that. And poisons are not only what children can swallow through their mouths, though that's the commonest routes by which children can take this thing in, but it can also be from the skin. They can absorb things through the skin, especially the very small babies. It can also be inhaled, through the nose. It can also enter into the eyes. It can even be injected. Of course, those are rarer form of roots, but there's virtually, I don't want us to see poisoning as only something that goes through the mouth. It can go through the nose, it can go through the eyes, it can go through the skin. And so we need to be very aware of that. And so I'm just going to give us a few examples of things that could be poisonous to our children. And I'm not even giving an example of things that are sold in the shops as poisons. I'm talking of things that you use in your house every day, but they are actually potential poisons. Let's talk about things that children can swallow. The commonest one, obviously, like in my example, is kerosene. For those of us that live in Nigeria, we tend to cook with kerosene and a lot, and this kerosene are all over the place in our kitchen. And unfortunately, some of us buy this kerosene and we put it, or the people that are selling them, they sell them in containers that normally contain drinks. So our soft drink bottles, our bottled waters. So when the containers are empty, people use them to sell kerosene. I'm actually looking forward to a day where that will be banned, because then children, and this kerosene usually they are colorless. So children see it as either as water, or they see it as the soft drink that should be inside that container. And sometimes children's, their sense of smell. I mean, some of you say, okay, if you want to smell that it's not water or it's not a soft drink, but sometimes children don't smell that easily sometimes. So some of them are so curious, they're so inquisitive, they just go ahead and drink them. And kerosene poisoning is the commonest kind of accidental poisoning that we see in our children emergency room, especially in Nigeria. So this is one of the most common poison that children can drink. Okay, what about all those other detergent, that's where the liquid type, those things, the one that we normally spray to clean our table, clean our kitchen and all that? All these things are things that children can easily swallow and all that. Then there are some plants that are actually poisonous. Then some of us even put, we are trying to kill rats, and we put some of these rat poisons on food, and we put it around the house so that the rats can die. Do you know that those are also potential source of poisons to children? And so there are so many things that children can see around the house, and they are potential source of poison, including drugs. Of course, drugs is obviously common, and some of us are not very conscious as parents that these drugs that are meant for you, if the children takes them, they can become poisons to them. And some of these drugs, they look like sweets to the children. In fact, some of us parents actually tell our children that vitamin C is sweet. And I've always said, parents, please never, ever call a medication sweet. Not even vitamin C. It is not sweet. It is drug. And you should not give children impression that any drug is sweet or vitamin C is sweet, because then the next thing they want to do is to go and lick it. And sometimes they will do it when you are not there. And sometimes some of us are so, we're so tired, we're so careless, we just take our medication and leave it there. And these medications are looking right, they're looking, very enticing, like all those candies that children actually we normally buy for them, like Smarties and all that. Your iron supplements, your blood tonic actually look like candy to the children, and then children start to lick them, thinking they're sweet. And some actually sweet when they start to lick them. It's not every medication that is bitter, and this is one of the reasons why our children can now develop iron poisoning. So we need to be conscious of that. Also, things can on the skin of children, children actually have what we call a larger surface skin area to their body. So they can easily absorb things through the skin. And so it's so important. Some of the chemicals, some of our relaxers for our hair, that mothers especially, we know that when this thing gets on the skin of children, they can be absorbed. Some of this poison can be absorbed through the skin as well. So we need to be conscious of that. Also, fumes of our generator fumes, some fumes, some product we spray, like our insecticides and all that. I know some of us are not very conscious of the fact that those fumes, when children inhale them, they can be very poisonous to them. We need to be aware of that. And some of those products, if they splash into the eyes of children, they can actually be poisonous. So this is very, very important for us. So I think as parents, if there's anything I want you to take home from today's presentation, is the fact that virtually everything around you can be a poison to children. And we have to be conscious of that. We have to develop what we call child-proof homes where our children are protected and they're safe, from all these accidental poisoning. I'm going to talk more about kerosene poisoning. Like I said, it is one of the most common one. In fact, virtually every month, we always have at least one case of kerosene poisoning in the children emergency room, because it's one of the commonest things that children are exposed to. And then and why is this so? It's because most homes use kerosene in those days. A few people use gas, but even those who use gas or even electric stove sometimes always have their kerosene as backup. And some of us also keep fuel, especially those of us, because of all these power outages and all that. So we always have also petrol in the house as well as for our generators, and sometimes they are kept in places where children have access to. And these products, either kerosene or petrol, they are colorless. So children see them, they look like water. So sometimes when children are thirsty, they just think it's water, they go for them. And some of them actually, we keep them in bottles, empty bottles of bottled water. So children are also very curious, because children are curious, they're exploring the environment. They see something in a soft drink bottle, they see something in a water, supposedly to be a bottled water, then they are likely going to be there. And most of us just keep these things in our kitchen, and our kitchen do not have gates, and which means that children just go into our kitchen, come out anyhow they like. And most times we're not even supervising our children all the time. So these are recipe for disaster. These are recipe for kerosene poisoning. And kerosene, when children drink it, even small quantity, it can affect virtually all the organs of the body. For example, when children drink kerosene, they start having nausea, they can start vomiting, they can even have ulcer in the stomach as a result of kerosene poisoning. Another thing is that if they inhale it, because kerosene, those hydrocarbon, as we call them, they can easily change from liquid to gas very quickly. So even as children are drinking, or when they are vomiting it out, for those of us that now give them other things to make them vomit, they actually inhale it, and it can cause what we call inflammation in the lungs, pneumonitis, and this can even make the oxygen level to go down. It can also cause irregular heartbeats, and it can cause headaches if it affects the brain, make them very restless. It can even make them to become unconscious. And depending on the level, it can lead to death. in children, depending on whether it's mild, very severe. So sometimes children can drink kerosene, and if it's small and they quickly stop, well, good. But if not, some of them can end up in ICU, and I've seen children die from it. So this is why it's so important. And the symptoms are symptoms that can occur over hours. So it may not occur immediately. It may be 6 hours later. That's why usually when you say your child has taken kerosene, we want to observe them for the first 6 hours to see whether they're going to develop any of those symptoms. And if there's no symptoms, then okay, maybe nothing will happen. But some children can develop very severe symptoms. They can become very feverish, even just from kerosene poisoning. And that is why we as parents, we need to be conscious of that. We need to be aware that our children are being exposed. And if a child has drank kerosene, please, you have to take them to the hospital. Don't do any home remedies. All these home remedies like trying to induce vomiting by giving them palm oil, it is the worst thing to do, because you can actually make things worse in the process of trying to make it better. You're actually making it worse. So when children take poison, sometimes parenting that, okay, let's get them to vomit it out. When it comes to things like kerosene, petrol, all the hydrocarbons, don't induce vomiting, because when you induce vomiting, you actually bring out the kerosene or the petrol, the hydrocarbon, and it goes from the intestinal pathway to the lungs, and that is even worse. It can lead to pneumonia. It can lead to death. So please don't induce vomiting in a child who has drunk kerosene. No matter how small it is, you need to take them to the hospital. Like I said, we observe them. Sometimes we may do chest x-ray, because the most important is to check whether that kerosene, is it getting to the lungs? Is it going to affect the lungs? Are the children going to start breathing fast? Do we need to give them oxygen? So usually we observe the children for 6 to 8 hours. If it's luckily most children, because of the bad taste, and that's why sometimes they add other things to kerosene these days to make it not taste nice, so that when children start to immediately take a first sip, they stop. They know it's not something okay. But some children are not even, they can just keep drinking it. So we have to make sure we don't leave our toddlers unsupervised, unmonitored at any point in time. So initially we watch the children. If after 6 to 8 hours there are no symptoms, no breathlessness, we can be sure maybe at least we can have some degree of confidence that maybe it's too mild and the children can go home. But if we start having symptoms, then we need to treat the child. Of course, there's no specific treatment for the kerosene itself. It's just that we need to support the child's body when he's going through all the side effects. So if the child is breathing fast, we need to give oxygen. If we just give what we call supportive or symptomatic treatment, and then hopefully make sure it doesn't happen again. If it is drugs that children ingested, for drugs, we can, if you go to the hospital within the first hour. So that is the crucial hour, the golden hour. So when children ingest poison, the first thing we want you to do is to get to hospital as quickly as possible. If you get to hospital as quickly as possible, in the olden days, we used to have some syrup that we give them to make them vomit out the drugs. But these days, most time we just rely on what we call activated charcoal, something we'll give to the child to drink, and it will kind of absorb that drug in the stomach before it gets into the blood and gets into the body system and start causing harm. So if your child ingested any drugs and all that, you have to get them to the hospital as quickly as possible, because we have very limited time to act. Usually we want to see the children within the first hour. Within the first hour, we can still do a lot of things. We can still quickly get those drugs or medication out of the intestine of the child before the body absorbs them, before it starts to cause harm or side effects. So the earlier, the better. There are some drugs that we have what we call antidotes for. For example, if it's paracetamol, there are some medication we can give for paracetamol and all that. Even I think for iron, there are some drugs we can give to, we call it chelators, that can, destroy the effect of the iron on the organ system. So, but the most important thing is that you find your way to the hospital. If you live in a country where they have what we call poison centers and all that, you can call them. But the best option is actually for you to get to the hospital and let the doctors call the poison center, who will give them advice on what to do, depending on how much of medication, depending on how long ago it was taken, depending on the symptoms the child is having. But I think the emphasis I really want to put is the earlier you get to us, the better, because we can do things. So beyond just talking about the treatment of poison, I think the most important thing is to avoid it. We really, children are actually on the fives. They are very curious. They are always inquisitive. They are always exploring, and most of them are in the phase that is what we call oral stage, where everything they pick up, everything goes into their mouth. So the prevention is actually the key. It's the most important thing I really need to talk about, because no matter what we do, sometimes we are able to save some children. Sometimes we are not able to save children, depending on how much of the poison was ingested, depending on how soon you discovered it, and depending on how soon you find your way to the hospital, depending on which kind of hospital facilities you have around you. So just like every other thing, we always say prevention is better, is cheaper, is safer than drugs. So I really want to focus more on the prevention of accidental poisoning, because I think that is what we as parents need to know. And I want you to remember it by the 4 A's. So there are 4 A's that when it comes to accidental poisoning on prevention. There are 4 A's. If you remember these 4 A's, then you're on your way to making sure that your children do not have accidental poison. The first A is to increase awareness, which is what I'm doing right now. We need to be aware. I've just told us in my introduction that potentially everything you have in your house is a poison. Everything, especially in your kitchen, especially all those cleaning agents, almost everything, the soap and children, all these things they put this in their mouth, So we really need to be aware. We need to know about this. Many of us, we are taking medication, we just put it in our cabinets. These cabinets are open. Children can open them. Some of us have bottles that children can open. Your children is already able to open bottles and you think it's something funny. Some of us just put them in all this sachet that's transparent. So we need to be aware, because I found out if we are aware that our children can get poisoned by these things that we keep hanging around, including our own medication, including some of us have our grandparents around us and they are on medication for maybe high blood pressure, they are medication for the diabetes and all that. And we just give them medication and just keep it by our bedside or the table side while we're watching the TV. You don't even know when this 1-year-old or 2-year-old has crossed to that side and taken all the medication. So parents, let's be aware. Let's be very alert. Let's be very conscious of the fact that all the things around us, all the possible things around us, whether they are drugs, whether they are cleaning products, whether they are fuel, whether they are soap and liquid soap and all of them are potential poisons. We need to be alert about that. So when we are aware of that, then it affects our habits, it affects our practices, it affects our outlook. So we are conscious. Also, you have children in your house. I usually say below the age of 5, but even sometimes the older children, some of them can also get some of this thing because they don't know. So we really need to be alert about that. We need to increase awareness, and that is what we are doing. That's what I'm doing today, giving you this talk about accidental poisoning, because I want all of us as parents to be conscious of the fact that our children can have accidental poisoning through all the products we have in our house. So that's the first A for preventing poisoning. First A, we want to increase awareness.
Okay, you heard from Dr. Boyede herself, the 4 A's when it comes to preventing poisoning in children. The first A, she talked about increasing awareness. I think she has 3 more to go. But before then, I want to let you know, she mentioned Best Beauty, you heard. Parents and caregivers should be conscious. I was sharing a story with Best Beauty off the air of a woman I know who had a baby at some point, and then the first son, rather the second son, who was about a year and few months old, as at then he couldn't talk very well, was just playing around the house. And this woman felt, oh, it's almost, afternoon. I need to go prepare, what's it called, lunch for, my man and all that. She went into the kitchen, brought out beans, raw beans, was picking. You have to first of all select the good ones. She was picking these beans, and this child was running all around that particular table, running around. And she didn't know when that child picked up just one seed of beans and stuffed it into his nostrils. She didn't know. All of a sudden, this boy came and was now trying to, sneeze. He was behaving strange, only for her to look into his nostrils, and she found beans. She raised the alarm and started shouting. Rushed that boy to a pharmacy nearby. They couldn't handle the situation, took him to a hospital, and in fact, they were almost prepping for surgery when all of a sudden, I don't know if I will call it God's intervention, or the bean fell out of the nostrils. That is how emergencies happen. And accidental emergencies can come up, especially when you have children. You have cleaning agents in your house. It could be poisonous, or it is poisonous to children. Sharp objects can, God, there are a lot. I have a lot to say. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Air freshener.
So
bath soap.
soap.
Especially those
supplements.
Smelling like scented. There was a point in time when I would bait my younger brother. When my mom gave birth to him newly, he would be eating the soap that
Oh
we were
my
using
God.
to bathe him. And at that point, I didn't know it was, but I was like, okay, this is soap.
What of powder? I
Thank you.
licked powder a lot as a child. Oh my
I know
God.
those
I say
things.
I licked powder as it. What of you talked about what's it called? Cotton buds.
Yes, cotton
Putting
buds.
it in the ear, and the child wants to clean his ear.
Yeah, I've seen you
I see
cleaning your
mommy do
ear.
this all the time, and then
Exactly.
before you know it, it gets stuck in the eardrum, and you start to run helter skelter. So these are the things. Although these are physical things, but we are more concerned about the one that goes into the stomach.
ingesting.
In fact, that is the one that will make you throw you off balance, and if you're not careful, that child might just die in your arms. But we pray that doesn't happen. So let's go back to the second part of the conversation to know about the 3 A's. Yeah, when it has to do with preventing poisoning in children. Keep listening, don't go anywhere. We'll bounce back before the end of the program.
Second hay. The second hay is we want to decrease attractiveness. So decrease attractiveness. One of the things that actually make children to get accidental poisoning is because some of these things actually looks very, very attractive to children. So they really look attractive. Look at all those our iron tablets, for example. They look like the Smarties. They look like candies. So children don't see, and some of us have told them vitamin C is also sweet. So why can't iron tablets also be sweet? So we need to always decrease attractiveness, and this is not just even for parents. This is also for those our pharmaceutical companies, those for our those people that are manufacturing products, soap, liquid, and all that. Please, let's do it in a way that they don't look attractive to children. They don't look like candies. They don't look like gummies. They don't look like sweets. We need to decrease attractiveness. So we should not leave our medication hanging around, we should not leave them hanging around and making them look like sweet to children and all that. So it's better than all these containers that are dark, that don't look like anything fancy or funny or anything attractive to children. So we really, really need to make sure that all these potential drugs, all these potential poisons, all these products that we use, we want them to look unattractive to children. So we don't want them to be in all these pink colors, like some of our soaps, they are like pink colors, they're smelling nice and all that. I'm not saying we should not use those, but we need to be aware, we need to keep them away. We need to make sure that they are in containers that don't look too attractive for children. So let's be mindful of that. Children. But the children. But this is where we come in, the third A. The third A is to decrease accessibility, decrease accessibility. We need to, which is where most of us as parents, our job needs to be done, because most of the time we leave these things out for the children to see. We leave them, we're taking medication in front of children. We shouldn't be doing that. Honestly, we shouldn't, because children see that you are taking this medication. They think, oh, it's mommy is taking it. It must be something nice. They don't know that you are taking it for your blood pressure, you're taking it for your diabetes. They just think you're taking something that looks nice, which is part of second A, attractiveness. So we need to make sure that we decrease accessibility of of our children to these things. And how do we do it? Our kitchen should be locked. Yes, children below the age of 5 should not have access to kitchens or where you keep your cleaning equipments and all that. They shouldn't have access to those places. You should lock them, and I mean lock them. It's better you use cupboards that are like IHOP. So for those that have cupboards that are up and down, for your products, like your cleaning products, your all those things, keep them in cupboards that are high up where their ends cannot reach. Okay, that is number one. Even if you don't have high cupboards, your cupboards are low down, lock it. Make sure they have keys. Make sure you don't leave your cleaning liquids, your medications and all that. You don't just put them in the fridge. You don't just leave them on open surfaces. You need to, if you are keeping them in the fridge, because some of them have to be kept in the fridge because of temperature, then you got to lock your fridge, or make sure that your fridge is inaccessible to the children. Decreasing accessibility is, I think, for me, is the most important thing under prevention of poisoning that is in our hands as parents. It is in our hands as parents. That one is not, you can't do much about awareness, you may not do much about attractiveness, but you can do a lot about accessibility. Please, children should not have unrestricted access to the kitchen. They should not. Children should not, all our cupboards where we keep things like that should be locked. Don't leave your medication in the cabinets by your bedside that is open, that children can open. You lock it up. Okay? The fridge, if you keep them in the fridge, lock it up. If you have high cupboards, keep them away. Please, let's be very conscious of this. Those of us that use kerosene, please don't keep your kerosene in bottles of water. Okay, don't put them in soda drinks or your usual soda drinks. Don't use their bottles as your storage. Okay, don't use your bottles as storage for kerosene and other. Use the proper kegs and containers, and make sure it is properly keyed. Those ones that you even children cannot unturn, they cannot untwist to open it, and keep it in a cupboard with lock and key. All those are our petrol fuel for generator. Please, let's have a gen house that is far away from where children can access. Let's make sure it's a place that is locked away. Make sure it's a place where children cannot access. I know some of us may not have those luxury, but at least even in your, just wherever you keep them, you can see put some kind of covering or demarcation around it that children cannot easily access time. So we need to decrease accessibility of our children to this medication or to these products. Most of the accidental poisoning, when they happen, the parents are not aware, because if you are there and you're aware, you will definitely be able to stop it. But most times you are not there. So, but if you are not there and there's no access to those things, the children will never have accidental poisonings. And this information is not only for parents, it's also for those of us that run childcare services. So our nannies, our schools, we need to be conscious of the fact that we don't allow our children to have access to potential poisons. We've started by saying virtually every product around us can be a poison for children, and we just need to make sure that all these potential poisons are not accessible to our children. Is the most important thing, and I don't think I can overemphasize it enough. So let's decrease accessibility. And also, final A is to decrease availability. All right, let me create the banner. Before A is to decrease availability. So most of it is decrease apart from awareness, which is increase. So you want to decrease availability. In other words, what you don't need, don't keep around you. Okay. If your medication is already expired, you're not using it anymore, please trash it, throw it away in the properly discard it the way you should discard them. Don't just leave them hanging around the house. Don't just leave them in the cupboards. Even food items that are expired, that are bad, let's remove them so that children don't get tempted. And so if you reduce the availability of these products as well, then it will be fine. Also, another way is that when you are buying drugs, make sure you buy what we call child-resistant packaging. This is something the pharmacists have been doing now as part of this um, as part of their own contribution to reducing accessibility and availability of potential poisons to children. So they have what we call child resistant packaging, and that's why you see some medication when you try to turn them, you can't turn them. If you turn them normally, they won't open. So they've done it in a way that an adult needs to do it because you have to forward overcome certain resistance. Maybe you turn it the other way around, and then before you can now turn it properly. So it's a bit kind of difficult for a child to be able to open that kind of product. So there are lots of packages of products and items now that we have got child resistant packaging. So when you're buying products, always look out for those that have child resistant packaging so that if it falls, even if, let's say you forget and it's accessible to the children, but at least it will not be available to them. So they use a lot of what we call child resistant packaging. It's one of the things, it's one way by which we can reduce or we can decrease availability. But the most important thing is that anything you don't need, any chemicals you don't need, any drugs you don't need anymore, please don't buy them. If you have them, please throw them away. That will also reduce the amounts of chemicals and products that your children have access to. So to remind us again, we've been talking about accidental poisonings, which is one of the preventable ways by which children can die because poison can kill, but we shouldn't, that should not be happening. And the most important thing, we have talked about management and all that, but the most important thing is to prevent accidental poisoning in children. And when it comes to prevention of accidental poisoning, we've talked about the 4 A's that I want you to remember. This is your take home. Number one is to increase awareness, which is what I'm doing today, talking to you about the potential of accidental poisoning and the fact that you should be alert, you should be aware and what to do and all that. So all I've been doing today is the first A in prevention of poisoning, and that is to increase awareness. The second is to decrease attractiveness. Okay, let's not make all these same poisons, let's not make them look sweet, let's not make them look nice to children. We decrease attractiveness, and of course we decrease accessibility. Let's lock away our medications, let's lock away the fuel, let's lock away the drugs, let's lock them away. Let's make sure children don't have access to the storage area, the kitchen area, all the places where we normally keep this stuff. Let's make sure we decrease accessibility. And of course, we need to decrease availability. So if you don't need it, don't keep it. If you don't need it, just lock it away. These are the important things that we can do as parents and as caregivers of our children so that our children do not get exposed to accidental poisons. And of course, this is what we call primary prevention. So those are the things we do first to make sure the children don't even get exposed to the poisons in the first place. And another thing we should be conscious is that children below the age of 5, once they are mobile, you have to monitor them. We need to keep constant. I know it's not easy for parents because we have so many things to do and all that, but we need this. Things, accidents happen in splits of seconds. They happen so fast. You just don't know, and sometimes some of the things our children play with as well. We need to be conscious of that. I've not mentioned that, like this silicone thing, that's this silicone gel, you do have it put in products so that it can keep those products dry and all that in bags and shoes and all that. Sometimes some of us think it's okay for children to play with them. Please don't let children play with them. Okay, so anything that has small parts, most of us, they always write it, the manufacturers, they always write it on and say this particular toy is not suitable for a child less than 3 years old. They always write it on it. But some parents, we just feel like, oh, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. The child can play with it. The reason why they write that, though this is not really strictly poisoning, but you see a form of ingestion of some of those parts, and I guess we can still talk about it under this particular topic, is that some of those parts, some of those products have small parts, and those small parts can come off. And when they come off, children can swallow them. So please, when we see our children playing with, number one, let's not give them toys that is not age appropriate. And any toy that has small parts is not age appropriate for a child less than 3 years old, because children less than 3 year old tend to put everything in their mouth. So that is it. So you can't, they are not cognitively developed. They are not able to think that this is dangerous for me to put in my mouth. So they put papers, they put everything in their mouth. So what we can do as parents is to make sure that they don't have access. It's still part of decreasing accessibility. They don't have the drugs. Let's lock them away. Let's make sure children don't have access to the storage area, the kitchen area, all the places where we normally keep this stuff. Let's make sure we decrease accessibility. And of course, we need to decrease availability. So if you don't need it, don't keep it. If you don't need it, just lock it away. These are the important things that we can do as parents and as caregivers of our children, so that our children do not get exposed to accidental poisons. And of course, this is what we call primary prevention. So those are the things we do first to make sure the children don't even get exposed to the poisons in the first place. And another thing we should be conscious is that children below the age of 5, once they are mobile, you have to monitor them. We need to keep constant. I know it's not easy for parents because we have so many things to do and all that, but we need this. Things, accidents happen in splits of seconds. They happen so fast. You just don't know, and sometimes some of the things our children play with as well, we need to be conscious of that. I've not mentioned that, like this silicone thing, that's this silicone gel, you do have it put in products so that it can keep those products dry and all that in bags and shoes and all that. Sometimes some of us think it's okay for children to play with them. Please don't let children play with them. Okay, so anything that has small parts, most of us, they always write it, the manufacturers, they always write it on and say this particular toy is not suitable for a child less than 3 years old. They always write it on it. But some parents, we just feel like, oh, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. The child can play with it. The reason why they write that, though this is not really strictly poisoning, but you see a form of ingestion of some of those parts, and I guess we can still talk about it under this particular topic, is that some of those parts, some of those products have small parts, and those small parts can come off. And when they come off, children can swallow them. So please, when we see our children playing with, number one, let's not give them toys that is not age appropriate. And any toy that has small parts is not age appropriate for a child less than 3 years old, because children less than 3 year old tend to put everything in their mouth. So that is it. So you can't, they are not cognitively developed. They are not able to think that this is dangerous for me to put in my mouth. So they put papers, they put everything in their mouth. So what we can do as parents is to make sure that they don't have access. It's still part of decreasing accessibility. They don't have those kind of products, and then when we have toddlers, let's not leave them unsupervised. Okay, we must always have a responsible adult with our toddlers at every point in time. You must always know where they are at every point in time. We have to keep monitoring them, because these things like accidental poisons, they happen in seconds. They don't happen over hours, or they happen in seconds. That split seconds that you take your eyes off them, this thing can happen. So we need to make sure all our children below the age of 5, they are constantly supervised. Don't leave them in one room and you are in another room. You're not sure what they're doing. Anything can happen. So please always supervise the children. Let's not give them toys that have small parts. Let's not give them things to play with and say, and you see they are mouthing it. So sometimes I see a lot of parents ask us questions on ATP about children putting paper and they've swallowed it, now they're asking us to do. And I'm like, when the children were playing with the paper and putting them out, where were the parents? Where were the caregivers? Some of us, we saw them doing it, but we felt, oh, they're just playing. Nothing will happen. Let's take it away from them. Let's give them something different. There are lots of toys that are chewy toys that children can put in their mouth, and nothing will happen because they are made in a way that they can bite on them, but they won't give away. They won't chip off, and the children will not swallow them. So let's be very, very mindful of that. And more importantly, let's not leave our own medication open, exposed. In fact, one of the common, next to kerosene poisoning, that is the next common kind of poisoning we have in children, where children have taken their own parents' medication. And of course, they will not take one tablet. Sometimes parents are not even sure how much of those products the children have swallowed by the time they come to the hospital. And all that is just simple carelessness on the part of us, the adults, because we left those products exposed to the children and then they get access to it. So even though you are conscious of other things, please be conscious of your own products for yourself, even your creams, even your perfume, even all those things. You have to be conscious of them because children can get a hold of them and that can lead to them getting poison. So please, let's be mindful of all things and let's try and avoid them. Let's remember all the 4 A's, and then we will see that our children will be protected from accidental poisoning. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Echo FM.
Okay, and there we have it from Dr. Bemishola Boyede, pediatrician and neonatal care specialist. I hope you had fun and I hope you learned a lot today. Please do not give palm oil. It's not in every situation that you rush and give palm oil because you want to give a child an antidote. You end up worsening the situation. I beg you. I would always tell people, do more of research and speak with your doctor. You should have a pediatrician at the corner. In case of any emergency, you pick up your phone and you call that person. He or she will now direct you on what to do. Don't just take laws into your hands so that you do not worsen the situation. Best.
And that is why we have palm oil inflation. But on a serious note, please, I know it's not easy. Like when we're talking about these events and everything, I know it's not easy to look at kids.
Okay, you had a fair share on Sunday.
It's not easy, but I know it's not going to be easy. But try as much as possible to be observant of your child. If their breathing is different, because one thing I noticed about observant parents is that if the child just starts twitching in a different way, they haven't observed it, and that could be a saving line of action.
Or even starts to run temperature.
Exactly.
All of a sudden starts to have watery eyes. You know, just know that something is definitely up. They might not talk. I told you of a child who drank liquid soap. The mom didn't know she was sleeping. And then something fell. That was what alerted her. She woke up and the child was belching bubbles. Bubbles coming out from a child's mouth. What will these children not do? Well, we have to go. Thank you for listening. My name is Mary Omeni Wode, the Slim Diva, your most adorable.
And my name is Best Beauty.
Thank you, J-Boy. In few seconds, we'll bring you the news. Don't go anywhere.
Shawty's like a melody in my head that I can't keep out. Got me singing like na 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 na. Every day's like my iPod stuck on replay. Shawty's like a melody in my head that I can't keep out. Got me singing like na 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 na. Every day's like my iPod stuck on replay. Remember the first time we met, you was at the mall with your friends. I was scared to approach you, but then you came closer, hoping you would give me a chance. Who would have ever knew?
This week to help those in need.
If you know that it's God Almighty that created you,
and granted we Nigerians like you. You need to do good things for us because the masses are suffering. How you can suspend me here? Are we the slaves?
And I'm going to win this election.
That is the truth.
Stay informed with Echo FM 100.7. Join us for exclusive interviews with experts, breaking updates on local and global events, and in-depth coverage of issues impacting our community. Tune in every weekday at 6:30 a.m., 12 noon, 2 p.m., and 6 p.m. for our major news bulletin in English, Igbo, and Pidgin language. For more inquiries, you can reach us through our email, echofm@thekingmail.com. You can follow us on our social media handles at Echo FM. Echo FM 100.7 Owerri. We are the Fresh News People. It's the news at noon on Echo FM 100.7.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Global News on Echo FM 100.7, the station with fair and balanced reporting. I am Best Beauty going far, bringing you the latest and breaking stories around the world. First, the headlines. Police deploy special forces ahead of NLC protests today. Governor Oti unveils Abia State 25 years development plan. FG recorded 30 trillion naira revenue shortfall in 2025, Edun. First funerals held for Bondi Beach massacre victims. Trump orders blockade of sanctioned oil tankers in and out of Venezuela. I called Buhari to get 2018 World Cup bonus, Michael. Details shortly, please stay tuned. The Nigeria Police Force has deployed special forces and tactical units across the country ahead of today's nationwide protest organized by the Nigeria Labour Congress. State police commands say the move is to ensure public safety, prevent violence, and protect critical infrastructure during the demonstrations. The NLC has insisted it will go ahead with the protests, describing them as a response to worsening insecurity, economic hardships, and unresolved labor-related concerns. The Congress confirmed that its affiliate unions have been fully mobilized to participate in rallies nationwide. NLC spokesperson Benson Upa warned that any attempt to disrupt the protest or harm participants could trigger an indefinite nationwide strike. He also urged the police to uphold democratic principles by protecting citizens' constitutional right to peaceful assembly and expression. Abia State Governor Dr. Alex Oti has officially unveiled the Abia State 25-year development plan and signed it into law, covering the period from 2025 to 2050. The long-term plan is designed to guide governance priorities, policy direction, and strategic investment decisions. Governor Oti explained that the development blueprint is a comprehensive framework that integrates economic growth, infrastructure expansion, human capital development, and social welfare. He noted that the plan builds on previous policy documents but has been revised to reflect current realities. The governor stressed that the plan's legal backing guarantees continuity across administrations. He commended the State Economic Management Team and the Abia Global Economic Advisory Council for their technical input, describing the document as a roadmap for sustainable development. Kogi State Governor Alhaji Ahmed Ododo announced the discovery of a large cache of arms and ammunition from criminal hideouts following a decisive joint security operation in the state. Governor Ododo, briefing journalists in Lokoja, explained that the intensified crackdown on criminal elements followed his recent meeting with President Bola Tinubu, who urged him to step up security efforts rather than seek accolades. The governor added that the security operatives executed a coordinated overnight operation that uncovered a major criminal enclave where a significant stockpile of weapons was concealed. Although no arrests were made during the raid, Ododo described the recovery as a major and strategic breakthrough in the fight against crime. He attributed the persistence of criminal activities to Kogi State's strategic geography, noting that the state shares boundaries with 10 states and serves as a critical corridor with multiple entry and exit routes. Ododo urged residents to actively support security agencies by providing timely, accurate, and credible information, assuring the public of the government's commitment to safeguarding lives and property. He praised the cooperation of security agencies and expressed appreciation to President Tinubu for his support. And if you just tuned in, you're listening to the Global News at Noon on Echo FM 100.7, a recap of the headlines. Police deploy special forces ahead of NLC protest today. Governor Oti unveils Abia State 25 years development plan. FG recorded 30 trillion naira revenue shortfall in 2025, Edu. First funerals held for Bondi Beach massacre victims. Trump orders blockade of sanctioned oil tankers in and out of Venezuela. I called Buhari to get 2018 World Cup bonus. Mikel, stay tuned for the business, sports, and foreign news. Please stay tuned.
It's the sound of the city. Echo 100.7.
Yesterday, like every other day.
Malaria is a disease caused by a parasite. The parasite is spread to humans through the bite of infected mosquito. Symptoms of malaria include fever and sweating, chills, headache and muscle ache, fatigue, chest pain, difficulty breathing, cough, diarrhea, seizures, nausea and vomiting. To reduce malaria infection, apply mosquito repellent to exposed skin. Use insecticide-treated bed nets. Treat clothing, mosquito nets, tents, sleeping bags, and other fabrics with insect repellent. Wear protective clothing and long sleeves to cover your skin. If down with malaria, please visit the nearest hospital. Do not self-medicate. This message is brought to you by Echo FM 100.7.
Oh Lord, I feel.
In business, the federal government has recorded a massive revenue shortfall in 2025 fiscal year, according to the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edu. He disclosed that projected revenue of 40.8 trillion naira fell sharply short, with actual earnings estimated at 10.7 trillion naira. Edun explained that the revenue projection was intended to fund the 54.9 trillion naira budget of restoration, which aimed to stabilize the economy, strengthen security, and support long-term growth. However, weak revenue performance has significantly affected budget implementation. The minister warned against rigid expenditure commitments based on optimistic oil revenue projections. He stressed the need for fiscal flexibility, improved revenue mobilization, and realistic budgeting to avoid recurring funding gaps. On the foreign scene, the first funerals have been held for victims of Australia's deadliest mass shooting in nearly 3 decades, which claimed the lives of 15 people at Bondi Beach. Emotional scenes unfolded in Sydney as mourners gathered to honor those killed in the attack. One of the funerals was held for Rabbi Eli Schlanger, who was killed while organizing a Hanukkah celebration for Jewish families. Crowds assembled outside the Shabbat of Bondi Synagogue to pay their respects ahead of the service. Rabbi Schlanger, age 41, was described as a devoted community leader, a chaplain, and a father of 5. Australian police have since charged one of the alleged attackers with murder and terrorism-related offences. Still on the foreign scene, United States President Donald Trump has announced a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers entering or leaving Venezuela. He accused the Venezuelan government of terrorism, drug trafficking, and human rights violations. Trump's announcement comes days after the U.S. seized a Venezuelan oil tanker off its coast. He alleged that oil revenues are being used to finance criminal activities, including drug smuggling, kidnapping, and human trafficking. Venezuela's government has rejected the accusations, calling the blockade an act of economic aggression. Authorities in Caracas accused Washington of attempting to seize Venezuela's oil resources amid rising diplomatic tensions. And in sports, former Super Eagles captain John Obi Mikel has revealed that he intervened to secure unpaid bonuses for Nigerian players after the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia. He said the Nigeria Football Federation delayed payments despite repeated assurances. Mikel explained that FIFA releases advance funds known as parachute money before major tournaments to allow federations settle players' bonuses. However, he said the funds were not paid even after the team arrived in camp. According to Mikel, he contacted the office of then President Muhammadu Buhari through Chief of Staff Abba Kyari. He said the bonuses were calculated and paid the following day, stressing they were earned entitlements. And this brings an end to the Global News edited by Benjamin Joseph. For more information and inquiries, visit our social media platforms on Facebook at Echo FM, X at Echo FM_Owerri, Instagram at Echo FM 100.7, YouTube at Echo FM 100.7. You can listen to us anywhere in the world by visiting www.echofm.net. I am Best Beauty Igoinfa. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more updates. Good afternoon.
It's the sound of the city. Echo 100.7.
Chukwuemeka Nwachukwu, popularly known as BM